Devil's Kitchen by Grace Franks Kane. Read by Frank Blissett. A Kaiwasai was blind and very old, and when his people took down their wigwams and fire poles, unearthed their sacred things, and removed with all their possessions to the distant hunting grounds, leaving him behind to die of starvation, he thought it very hard. By accident, his granddaughter, Willow Wand, had been left also, and the fact that he had a young and delicate girl dependent on him but added to his unhappiness. Willow Wand was angry when she was told that they were prisoners, unable to escape from the island because the boats had been taken away. But she was not afraid, and thought that, if signaled to, the fishermen, who often came to set their nets in the deep and sheltered waters of the bay, would take them off. With the old man's help, she hung a red blanket against the side of the white cliff, in a way that the fishermen would be sure to be attracted when they came again. Willow Wand was loved by a young man by the name of Keweenaw. He had thrown a white doe at the door of her lodge, in token that he desired her for his wife. It had been accepted, and he soon after left the island. AKYC hoped that, when Keweenaw heard of their desertion, he would come to rescue them, for well the young man knew the dangers to which they were exposed. But Keweenaw was at the fishing grounds, and might not hear of their plight for months. This thought caused the old man much anxiety. He was anxious to see his granddaughter wedded to the young man, for he had seen the glance of love exchanged between them, and believed that the union would be a happy one. After satisfying herself that the red signal had been properly placed, by her grandfather's direction, Willow Wand led the way to a hidden ledge in the side of the cliff, where they might watch for the fishermen without being seen themselves. AKYC's fear was that some of the hungry men of his tribe might return to make a feast off him, and drag Willow Wand away to a more cruel fate. The ledge they sought was near the cave of the red gibbous, who fed on nothing but human flesh, and on this account the old man believed they would be secure from any human devils who might look for them. Old and blind as he was, AKYC was ready to fight the whole demon population in defense of his child. But as he feared flesh and blood, he hid from it. A great she-bear slept on the ledge behind them, and Willow Wand, thinking this a fine opportunity to provide themselves with food, offered to kill it, but the old man forbade. "There is room for all," he said. "Muckway offers us no harm. We are not yet in need of food. Let her sleep." The girl obeyed, and threw herself upon a heap of leaves which had lately been the bed of the bear, and endeavored to forget her hunger. Their early meal had been but a handful of dried maize and some pounded pemmican, and though the old man had not felt the need of anything more, the girl was suffering for food. The provision in the old man's pouch was scanty, and he hated to draw upon it unnecessarily, so he told her to go to sleep, and, to quiet her, repeated wonderful tales of the turtle-shaped god, whose robes of state were of brightest green, and whose medicine was always good. Of the caves where the souls of giant fairies dwelt until the time when they should be called to perform the last dance. Of toadstools which once grew to such great size that the giants used them for lodges, and of how he had once been under the spell of witchcraft himself, and compelled to assume the shape of a reindeer, of how he had shed his horns many times with others of his kind, and how it was only by consenting to enter blindness that he had been permitted to resume his natural shape. He spoke of the beauty of her mother, Whispering Birch, of her wedding with the Willow, a man brave as he was wise, and who early followed his young bride down the misty paths of the dead. Under the soothing influence of his voice, the hungry girl fell into a deep sleep. The sun went down, and though Ikewise's sightless eyes beheld it not, he knew that night was falling by the chillness of the air. In the darkest night he could tell the direction of the prevailing winds and the names of the forest trees by passing his hands over their leaves or by feeling of their bark. Impossible to deceive him. He feared not death, having faced it daily in his life among wild beasts and wilder men, but he feared the evil ones of the cave, not because he was old, but because of his blindness, which prevented his seeing and warning his child when danger assailed them. There was no moon and no stars in the sky, but a flaming red light from the devil's cave streamed over the snowy head of the blind man and upon the flushed face of the sleeping girl, whose parched lips, even in her dreams, demanded, "Water! Water!" to relieve her thirst. The anguish of Ikewise was almost as great as that of Willowwand, for with the big water lying so near them, it seemed cruel that he could not provide her with drink. At the girl's feverish mutterings, his memory went back to the last hours of her mother, who with her latest breath had confided to him the secret of a magical gift possessed by her child, a gift inherited from her father, the willow, which, if carefully used, would add great power and many honors to her womanhood. At her command, springs of pure water would show themselves and flow in whatever place or quantity she desired. "This power," said the dying woman, "will bring her great fame as a prophetess and healer, but the knowledge of it must not be revealed to her until she becomes a woman." The old man wondered if this was not the moment to divulge the secret. All things had turned out as Whispering Birch had wished. Her daughter was good and pure and wise beyond her years. She had cared for and provided for all his needs, so that the loss of his old wife had not been unendurable. But no, he dared not risk it until she had undergone the fast which should prepare her for a woman's privileges, though he hated to think of the suffering she must endure in the performance of it. For 7 days and nights Willowwand endured the pangs of hunger and of thirst, and Ikywysi, fearing that she would die, and in spite of the danger of being caught by the red devils which infested the place, made his way to the lake to procure the water she so constantly called for. He moistened the poor girl's parched lips and cooled her burning cheeks, but not a drop could he force her to swallow, though "Water! Water!" was ever her delirious cry. "Nature is working in the child to confirm her mother's words," was the old one's thought, when suddenly in Willow Wan's breast the power rose like a wave, and leaping to her feet she struck the outward curving rock and demanded once more, "Water!" The old man invoked the aid of the spirit, and soon heard the musical sound of the tiny stream which ran through the fingers of the surprised girl with a wonderful healing power. Instantly her pains fled, her health returned, and she felt stronger and braver than ever. Remembering her grandfather's need, she quickly gave him of the water, and drank herself until she could drink no more. When Willow Wand had broken her fast, she was told the story of her wonderful gift. A long line of wise women had owned the same power, her grandfather said, but as she valued her life, she must use it discreetly and reverently, and never abuse it. He enumerated the many blessings she would be able to bestow and enjoy, and as he spoke she thought she heard another voice warning her of approaching danger. "Watch," it said. And as Ikywysi, worn out with his long vigils, fell into a deep slumber, she concluded to give heed to the warning, and seated herself beside him to watch while he slept. Night came, and she could see the flaming fires of the devil's cave, hear the shrieks of the men whom the Gibis were torturing, and the sounds of suffering which she was powerless to alleviate filled her tender heart with pain. The bear crowded near to her side, and seemed so sensible of their dangerous situation, and showed such real sorrow for the poor creatures in the cave, that Willow Wand felt sure that the shaggy-haired animal was one of those unfortunates who had been bewitched by the evil one, and was glad to have so human a thing to keep her company. The storm increased as the night advanced. Black and ragged clouds whirled across the sky. Birds of evil omen circled overhead, and creeping things scurried into the crevices of the rocks to escape its fury. "Yenad Dizzy, the crazy gambler, is playing for high stakes tonight," was the girl's thought, as she watched the winds striving against each other in the game whose score was marked by lightning strokes or washed away by the rain. Her heart ached for the unhappy ones who awaited their doom in the fiery pit, and she was wondering if she could not use her magical power in their behalf, when, to her horror and dismay, she saw Keweenaw led into the cave and placed near the central fire. Willow Wand's shrieks awakened her grandfather, and his grief was great when she told him what had happened. His fears for his own safety and that of his child were increased tenfold, until the bear whispered in his ear, "Watch, but fear not." "The spirit of thy mother lives in this she-bear," he whispered. "Have no fear. Where the spirits of the good abide, no harm can come. Let us obey her commands. Watch." The girl controlled her grief as well as she could, and threw herself upon the bear's neck to gather comfort from the mother spirit which dwelt within the creature's shaggy breast, while her eyes remained fixed upon the horrors which demons were perpetrating in obedience to the orders of their chief. Young men, whom her people had long given up as dead, were brought in and offered, one after another, in sacrifice to the wicked Manitous, who were ever ready to assist in evil doings, and nightly fed on human flesh as reward for their services. Terrified lest the next to be cast into the pit should be Keweenaw, Willow Wand leaped to her feet with the determination to attempt his rescue. Her movements were noticed by the devils, who recognized her as the Wand of Power, which their chief desired to possess, and who ordered the infernal ceremonies stopped until he should capture and return with the prize. In the confusion which followed, it happened that Keweenaw was left standing near the entrance of the cave, from which place he could see Willow Wand and her grandfather, in company with the bear, standing on the ledge, while nearby the chief devil of the pit made his preparations to capture the girl, to whom Keweenaw was betrothed. Behind him, in the cave, he could distinctly hear the jabberings and demoniac laughter of the loathsome demons, who were finishing up the feast of smoking human flesh which had been interrupted. The bear, pleased at the unselfishness which had prompted Willow Wand's act, told Akewisi to leave her alone, as all would be well if she were left to follow the promptings of her nature. And when the girl's light and scornful laughter at the sight of the hideous Gibi endeavoring to make up as a man for her conquest pealed with 1,000 musical echoes among the rocks and hills around them, the bear quietly slipped down the steep side of the cliff and disappeared from sight, confident that all would go well with the child and those whom she desired to protect and defend. The aged man was troubled by the bear's disappearance, but Willow Wand had no misgivings. "Fear not, my grandfather," she said. "My mother's spirit mingles with my own. Keweenaw shall be rescued, and tomorrow's sun will look upon our happiness." The devil had disguised as a warrior whom Akewisi and his people feared as one particularly treacherous and bloodthirsty. He thought to terrify the old man into accepting him for his son-in-law, and thought not that Willow Wand's magical power would be used against him. Well contrived as was his disguise, the girl recognized the devil under it, and scornfully bade him, "Begone!" She defied him, and the infuriated monster, forgetting his role, leaped from the projecting rocks to seize the girl, whose power, could he but secure it, would be of inestimable value to him. But Willow Wand saw him leaping over the crags above her, and as he sprang from the wall, a single blow of her small hand upon its blistered side brought forth such a gush of water as flung him shrieking into the whirling eddies of the dead hole. The fires of the cave were drenched with it, and Keweenaw began to hope that his life would be saved, even though the Okies and red spirits declared that they would rekindle the flames when they had stopped up the holes through which the water poured, and make the roasting pit hotter than ever. Keweenaw did not believe that they would accomplish this, for he felt that the Spirit of Good was answering his prayers. He looked around for some means of escape, and Willow Wand, seeing his need, waved a bridge of rainbow mists toward him, by which he safely reached the ledge to find the girl whom he loved reclining upon the shoulder of her sleeping grandfather, apparently as if nothing unusual had happened. The eastern sky showed streaks of red as Keweenaw seated himself beside the old man to await his awakening. With a knife taken from her grandfather's belt, Willow Wand cut the thongs which bound his arms, prepared a pipe for his smoking, and left him. No word of welcome or joyful greeting was uttered by these grave lovers. No trembling of his hand, no glance of her eye, spoke the happiness they felt. All day the grandfather slept, all day the lover smoked, and all day the maiden worked to clear the cave of its remaining horrors. She flung the howling demons into the lake, and quenched the smoldering fires of the pit, that they might do no further harm, and it was late when she returned to the ledge to share her lover's vigil. Evening came. Akycee woke to find the desire of his heart fulfilled. The lovers embraced. He gave them his blessing, and joined their hands in marriage. Keweenaw told the story of his adventures. He had been under an evil spell. The fishing season being over, he set sail for the island to join his people before they left for the winter. His boat, capsized by a sudden squall, went to the bottom as if made of iron, and he was thinking that he must soon have to follow it, because it is impossible to swim long in such a storm, when he saw a pair of moccasins floating before him on the crests of the waves. He put his feet into them, only to find them shod with lightning, which bore him in a flash to the cave from which he had just escaped. Willow Wand then related to him something of the gift of which she had become possessed, and of how she had driven the devils from the cave and made the bridge by which he had escaped. Then she told him of the day spent in making the cave habitable, and that, with his help, she hoped to make a comfortable home there. The red blanket had not brought the fishermen as soon as expected, but when they did come, Keweenaw purchased one of their boats, and with their assistance soon conveyed to his cave the store of provisions which he had prepared for winter use. Pemmican, dried venison and bear's meat, and fruits which he had found time to collect and dry between the setting and taking of the nets, were among the good things of their larder. And with rush mats for the floors, sacks of leaves and pine needles for couches, and warm furs for clothing and coverings, they looked forward to the winter without fear. The devil's fuel, for once, was put to good use, enough being found in the recesses of the cave to last them a lifetime. With it the new home was made warm and comfortable, and here the young couple passed the first happy months of their married life. The Indians returned in the spring to find Akycee living contentedly amid the comforts which his children provided, and when they were told that Willow Wand had worked all the changes by a powerful magic which she possessed, they easily believed it, and said that nothing but magic could banish evil spirits and make a happy home out of what was once a place of torment. But when the young couple showed them the whirling pool which lay between the island of the round game and their own, and they saw the bodies of the demons rise to the surface of the water in proof of what Willow Wand had done, they were at once accepted as prophets whose medicine was good. That was Devil's Kitchen by Grace Franks Kane. Read by Frank Blissett.